All right, welcome to our weekly news briefing. Thank you everyone who was able to come out. I think we're having our briefing a little earlier today than usual, so thank you for joining us. A lot has happened since last Thursday, but I'll be happy to take your questions on any topic at all after we get through some of the stuff that we're planning to talk about. First, I want to draw some attention to the Save Wichita Water program. We've had a lot of talk about water over the last several days, but we also have talked about conservation of water by using our Save Wichita Water program. So as of September 30th, we have over $22,000 left in the water conservation rebate program. So this program helps residents save money when getting new appliances, and also conserves water, which aligns with our sustainability practices at the city. Since the program first began, rebates totaling over $1,230,000 have been approved for more than 13,000 water-saving units, saving an estimated 330 million gallons overall. So if you're on the market for a new appliance, you could save money by utilizing our rebate program, which it's to encourage folks to buy more sustainable appliances or rain barrel or those type of items. So to see a list of qualifying purchases, including dishwashers, rain barrels, toilets, and more, visit wichitawater.com. So to get into our discussion with water and get an update, we're welcoming Alan King, who is the Director of Public Works and Utilities, and he's here to provide us more information on what staff has been doing following last week's main water break. So Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning. We continue to work quickly to get the line that broke here last week back into service. And while we work, we don't expect residents to be experiencing interruption in water service or drivers to experience slowdowns or problems with traffic. We've got everything pretty well buttoned up temporarily to have the minimum impact on our citizens and customers. The broken piece of pipe has been removed, new pipe has been installed, and we've temporarily backfilled the hole so that to protect the slope on the side of interstate. And the isolated portion of the line has been disinfected. That's a process that takes at least one day to disinfect the pipe. So we're all ready, but before we proceed with putting the pipe back into service, we want to be careful and understand the integrity of that portion of the pipe that is presently isolated and out of service. So what we're going to be doing prior to putting it back up into service is the repaired section of pipe the repaired section of pipe will be pressure tested, and we'll put it at a very high pressure to see if it's going to be able to hold. So that's the first thing. The failed section of pipe is being actually tested, what they call a forensic test, to see if we can understand what happened to the pipe, how it failed, what were the conditions of the pipe that led up to that failure. We're also going to be looking at soil conditions at and around the pipe to see if there's corrosivity of the soil. It's in a section of the freeway that is salted with brine. We want to know if there is chlorides, salt in the soil, which sometimes can accelerate deterioration. We also want to understand if there's a natural electrolysis that's happening between the pipe and the ground itself. Sometimes that happens. So we want to understand if that pipe, where it failed, why it failed, and then also extrapolate that to the rest of the pipe. We have plans to try to get specialized equipment brought into town to actually run a special device into the inside of the pipe, and it's a magnetic resonance type of technology. And what it does is, even though it's inside the pipe, it can examine the wire cage that is part of the structure of the pipe. The pipe, if you can imagine, it's just a concrete pipe, but inside the pipe is steel wire. And that contributes significantly to the strength of the pipe itself. And so to understand the condition of that wire, we believe that there's some specialized equipment that we can bring into town and do a more extensive condition assessment of that piece of pipe. And if warranted, depending on what we find, We're prepared up to and including a complete replacement of that pipe. We have the funds available for doing that if that's where we have to go. But what we're going to do is make sure what is the smart move, whether it's to rehab or replace, or to simply recognize that this failure was at a very specialized place. Other proactive steps that we're taking in the meantime while we continue to gather information about this pipe and the rest of our system is we're being proactive. And what I mean by that is in October, as you know, it's the second most rainy month of the year, and we have a lot of electric storms during this time of the year. During electric storms, sometimes you can experience interruptions or blips in the power. And so what we're doing ahead of forecast electrical storms, we're putting our facilities on our standby generation so that we can basically be off of public power and generating the power with our diesel powered generators during those times. And that's a good, clean, reliable source of power for us during that time. We are also looking at possible ways for us to reconfigure our system. Our system now is optimized to run as very best as it can to meet maximum fire flow demands and those sorts of things. But one of the things we've considered is while we're assessing this pipe and others like it, we will look at things like choking down valves just a little bit to reduce pressures in certain parts of our system to protect our system from transient pressure spikes. And we're looking at other possible ways that we can mitigate those sorts of error or those sorts of problems. We're also looking at the opportunity to add additional equipment. We're going to be doing a rehab of Hess Pump Station. That's the city's main pump station anyway, as part of the new water treatment plant project. We're asking the question, is there some of the equipment that we were planning on doing, adding anyway, should we add it ahead of time? And so we're looking at that possibility. I want to thank the crews that made this all happen, their response, their continuing work. It's not over yet. The boil advisory is lifted. We received word from KDHE that a boil advisory of this magnitude can take up to a week, 6 days a week to get resolved. We resolved it in 36 hours. And I'd say that's due to the extraordinary work and efforts by our crews and also the cooperation that we receive with KDHE. They're really good partners, and they worked with us to get this boil advisory lifted quickly. I want to reiterate that this was not a failure of the water treatment plant. And so the water treatment plant performed just exactly as it was designed and is operated. So I want to make sure that everybody understands this was a problem associated with a power aberration and a pressure that went through our system. Also, I want to make sure that you understand that this particular pipe had no history of failure, and so now we know it failed. And so we look at it. We're looking to gather additional information, and we always do that with our nearly $11 million each year of pipe replacement that we do. We look at how to prioritize that money every year, and we always use the best and most current information in that prioritization. This will be another piece of information that we use in prioritizing our repairs going on. And so with that, I just want to thank the community for their patience and cooperation. I want to thank our city crews, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for standing behind us and helping us with this whole thing.
All right, so keeping with our theme of water and sustainability, just a reminder that our sustainability board has now opened up for applications for positions for anyone who is interested in serving on the board. We have heard from many in the community interested in furthering sustainable practices here in Wichita, and we hope that folks who want to help will step up and step out by applying to be on the board at wichita.gov, and it's under board and commissions so that we can get more people involved with the policymaking here at the city level. A quick jobs announcement. Last night at the NBAA Mid-Continental Aviation Services announced they would be doubling their workforce here in Wichita. Mid-Continental Aviation Services is a full-service maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility. As part of their planned growth, the company will create 23 new jobs, growing the team to over 40. Company plans to include the construction of a new 31,500-foot hangar, The new hangar space will accommodate planes for future work that includes state-of-the-art infrastructure. It is projected that the new hangar will be operational in 2022. The total investment for the project exceeds $5.7 million, and it's good news for Wichita and for our workforce. So congratulations to Mid-Continental Aviation Services on their company growth, expanding team, and forward-thinking mindset. And also, of course, thank you to them for choosing Wichita as the place to grow their business. And with that, a lot of stuff has happened over the last week, so I'll open up to questions not just about this, but if we have questions about water, we have Alan here to get into the technicalities of it, but really about anything that's been going on.
Is Mid-Continent receiving any tax incentives from the city as part of this expansion?
I'm not sure from the city. I'd have to ask staff, and I do have their.
Do you know what the jobs will entail? As far as, you said 20-something new jobs?
Yeah, we know that it's a MRO, so I believe the jobs will be expanding maintenance repair type work.
Obviously, we have a workforce here in Wichita that probably can fill those needs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when it comes to expanding, what are the maintenance repair and overhaul capacities here in Wichita, we not only have a workforce, we have the best workforce when it comes to working on airplanes, particularly with the expansion of that sector, which is maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So these are planes that are flying in, and just like cars, they need checkups, they need tune-ups, and so on. Obviously, much more specific type of work in that area, but this adds into a growing ecosystem of jobs from not just this company that's growing, but other companies that work in this space. So we have programs over at WSU Tech that have multiple different levels of everything from diplomas to certificates to associate degrees in this area. So we are in support, working with our partners to help train folks for these positions, and also because we already have a large sector in this area, you'll probably see some folks who already have the experience take these positions as well. Yes, ma'am.
Question for Alan. With the testing process, would you be able to break down a little bit more what that's actually been looking like so far this week to make sure nothing's happening with other pipes?
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, we're not only looking at the pipe that failed to try to understand why and how it failed, and like I said, things like looking at a forensic examination of the pipe itself, the soil conditions it was in, the conditions of the pipe now under the rest of the freeway with some special magnetic image equipment that we're going to use. But we're also looking at system-wide where we have this kind of pipe with this kind of age, and looking at things that we can do to look at consider that pipe too. So the analysis is still not completely cooked, but we expect that over the next year that we will be doing some condition assessment of some pipes based on this most current information.
Alan, you mentioned the soil that you were also going to be checking. What about the road surface itself? Any concern that maybe there might have been some damage to the road surface also?
We haven't observed any physically. We've been working closely with our partners at Kansas Department of Transportation. They want to make sure that that road is safe, as do we. No visible signs yet. From what we've seen so far of the failure, it doesn't look like the casing failed and caused soil to wash away and a void underneath the highway, but that's based on the information we have now. We'll be doing some testing on this section of pipe to better understand both the condition of the pipe and the casing. It's kind of a pipe within a pipe, the casing that runs underneath the freeway, and so we'll have a higher level of confidence that it has the proper soil conditions underneath the road itself.
As part of those soil conditions, you say you're checking for possible corrosivity, I think is the word you used. Are there remedies if you do find some evidence of that?
Yeah, there are soil conditions within the city that set up it's like a battery, where you have two different materials, and then you have electrolysis happening, electricity basically going from one material to the other. And when it does that, sometimes it sacrifices the material of infrastructure on bridges, for example, the gas company with their metal pipes. It's very common for them to add cathodic protection to their pipes to protect them against corrosion. So this is a normal sort of a thing that we find in these sorts of soils in this part of the country. So we're going to be looking to see if there's anything that stands out to us that we should address in our plans going forward.
I apologize if you've already answered this question, but how big of a section are we talking about that you're having to replace? And then you also mentioned you might have to replace the entire pipe. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, was it about 40 feet, 2 sections? I think it was about 40 feet. We can get back to you with the details on that. One section was affected for while we were there and had the pit open. We replaced an additional amount of pipe. The full length of pipe, is it 500 feet?
We have about 500 feet isolated. It was about 20 feet section that we cut out and put in the new pipe.
So there's a lot more pipe than the part that was actually replaced and that had failed and was replaced. And that's what we want to make sure we keep offline. It's all ready to go online, but we need to do some due diligence to understand the condition of that pipe before we put it back into service.
You mentioned the aging pipes throughout the city. I mean, is there a concern that, are we going to possibly see more of these, or are you pretty safe that, I mean, these things happen, I think weather sometimes affects this.
Yeah, the demand of the water that is going through those pipes, you're right. Let me say this, for a system of this age, this is fairly typical that you have water main breaks. We have the crews and operations in the ready 24/7 to be able to address water main breaks. What made this a little unusual is that the effect of the break was for us to lose system pressure. And that's an undesirable outcome of a break. We have breaks throughout the system, and that's to be expected. I must tell you that when we did a condition assessment here a while back, it pointed out that we, like every other system of this kind of an age, need to stay on top of pipe replacement. And our council has supported that effort by passing a capital improvement plan that has $10 million, sometimes even more, every year, year after year. So it's not a matter of funding. We're getting the funding. We just need to be able to apply that funding where it makes the most sense.
You mentioned the pressure test that I guess you're going to put the pipe through. Can
Yes.
you talk a little bit more about that? How will that all work out?
Well, you look at the type of the pipe and its condition, you look at the size of it, and there are engineering tables that say how much pressure you should apply to it for how long and what is an allowable pressure loss. That's what we will be doing. We will actually be bringing it up to a pressure above what it would normally operate at, but that is still safe, to see if we can get a sense of the integrity of that pipe.
You talked about the age of the piping system. What is the age of the pipes?
Well, that particular pipe was built in 1969. We have some some pipes that are newer, some pipes that are older. You got to remember that depending on the pipe material, some pipes have an expected life of 150 years. So it's not as though we have an old system that's way past its age. What we try to do is we try to recognize the amount of life that pipes have in them. We don't want to replace them while they still have good remaining life left in them. That would not be a good use of our customers' funds. So what we try to do is work as smart as we can with replacement each year with the funding that was approved by the council to replace those pipes that need to be replaced, and to do it based on the best information that we have.
Last question for me. What happens to the water when you lose pressure? Some people say it mixes in with sewage water, that makes it unsafe. What exactly happens to the water that you guys have to issue a boil advisory?
Well, what I can tell you is, first of all, let's start with, we have to have a certain amount of testing that we do in order to be able to satisfy KDHE. and they are conservatively safe, as they should be. But what I can tell you is the results that we had during the event was we never lost pressure on the system, anywhere in our system. And we retained a chlorine residual throughout our system for the whole time. It's almost impossible to have contamination like bacteria in the water and still have a chlorine residual. So we were confident that our water was safe, but we needed to err on the side of safety and also meet the KDHE requirements that they put in place. And so the water, although we were careful, the indications that we had was the water was not, people were not in danger. The way that contamination occurs that you're talking about is if the pressure goes below 20 pounds per square inch, 20 psi, if it goes below that pressure, there is some concern that the groundwater that's around the pipe can leak in. All pipes leak. But the thing is if you keep the pressure high enough, they leak out. If you have the pressure too low, then they can leak in. And it's not sewage, it's groundwater. So it's for the same reason you wouldn't want to go into your backyard and drink out of a mud puddle, groundwater. We want to make sure that this groundwater, should it find its way into the pipe, would not in some way cause a health hazard. As it turns out, our tests confirmed that the water was safe, remained to be safe. But we had to be able to demonstrate to KDHE that.
Was any workers pulled from the new water plant, and what's the percentage on how far along they are?
Well, the new water plant's still on pace for completion in 2024, which is pretty amazing for a project of that size. No workers were not pulled from the water plant. It's a construction contract and consultant work that's being done over there. So city staff at this point has little contribution to what's going on there. One of the contractors that helped us, Donlinger, they're one of the contractors that are working out there. They protected the progress continuing progress at the water treatment plant, but they also worked with us to bring some of their equipment and people to help with the repairs. So it did not impact the new water treatment plant.
For the testing that's going on right now, do you guys have an estimate of how long that's going to go and when you guys will have those results fully back?
Yeah, it's still dependent on the availability of, for example, the consultants and the equipment that can have it. We're shooting for sometime next week. I don't know if we'll be successful. You aim high, and sometimes you don't get quite where you want to get. We would like to have the results soon after next week. In the meantime, we'll make sure that we keep the system safe, but we want to make sure that we do the right thing, the smart thing, and even if that means waiting an extra week or two.
Thank you.
All right, and just to follow up on a question about the Mid-Continental Aviation Services on if they received city incentives, we just confirmed they did not. They did receive state incentives, but nothing from the city.
Where they're actually located at out there.
There we go. Yeah.
Thank you.
So further questions on any other topic? Just want to thank you guys for the work over the last week when it comes to getting the information out as fast as possible with the water situation. And also with the coverage of the non-discriminatory ordinance. I thought that was a pretty big deal that the city was able to get passed. So thank you guys for covering that as well. And if there's no further questions, then we'll go ahead and end the presser. Call me if there's anything else I could do for you guys.